Welcome, Donna. We're so happy that you can be here with us today, Monday, February 13th, and we're at Louisville Convent, and we're here to chat with you about some of the themes in your life story that really express music in the Sisters of St. Louis and the impact it's had. I think first I'd like to have you talk a little bit about your coming here to California. You're the oldest of 4 girls in the family, and you lived in New York on Long Island, and you moved to the San Fernando Valley when you were about 11 years old in 1960. Was that move from New York to California a good one for you, and could you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I grew up, as you said, on Long Island in I grew up, as you said, on Long Island in a close, extended family situation. And then my dad got a good job offer to come here to Los Angeles. I probably would never have met the Sisters of St. Louis if we hadn't moved here. It was hard at the beginning. We were lonely. We had no friends or family out in California. So I suppose it brought us closer as a family. And then we bonded well with our neighbors and our parish and our schools.
Okay, thank you. The history of music in the Sisters of St. Louis is something that we thought that you could really expound on in your own life story and the experiences that you've had throughout the Institute and the many ways you've served. So could you speak a little bit to how music helps to promote the right relationship with God and one another, or how does it impact your life in a way that really makes it richer in so many ways? Because whatever you say about yourself, I think we could transfer to the Institute too.
Well, music has always been important in my family. My mother loved it. She could play piano by ear. My dad loved it, even though he couldn't play any instrument. But he always grabbed any sticks or spoons or anything when there was a rhythm to be played. In our grammar school in New York, we had a lot of singing, just as my mom and her sisters had before us. We learned the Latin and the chants, and I think that was part of my own faith development in elementary school.
So you were in a Catholic school back east, is that
I
right?
was. I was in the same school my mom and her siblings went to. Then when we came out here, I had to go to public school at first because there were no spaces in the local Catholic school. And it was fortunate, I think, because I had this wonderful male teacher in 6th grade. He was very creative in many ways. He gave us fake checks to invest in the stock market, and every day we had to follow the value of our stock. He rotated leadership in the class so that everybody developed their chance to be a leader. And he taught us probably a new song every week of the school year. And then he had those class leaders choose a song or a couple songs every day, and the entire class would sing regularly. And it stuck with me. I still remember the words of most of those songs to this day.
Can you name a few of them?
Oh, Carolina in the Morning, Swanee, California, Here I Come, many like that. Chattanooga Choo Choo, old ones and ones that were somewhat contemporary then. Then I got into Catholic school at Our Lady of the Valley here in Canoga Park, very near to where we're sitting. And my 8th grade sister there, she also led the choir. She encouraged me to help practice the different parts, like the alto section or something like that. And she used my simple talent of playing piano and organ by encouraging me to play for devotions at church. So she kept the music alive. But I think the love came from every part, from my family, from that public school teacher, from that 8th grade sister.
Well, we know that you continued your love for music when you went to Louisville High School from that Catholic grade school here in the Valley, and that had a tremendous influence on your life in terms of teachers, in terms of life direction choices, and in terms of music. So could you just expound on any parts of those pieces of your story?
From the first month that I was in Louisville High School, I think I had chosen to take choir as a freshman. And within 2 months or 3 months, I was cast in a very small part in a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta called Patience. And our sisters in Ireland had always put on big operettas in the schools there, and I think that Louisville, this was the first operetta Louisville's offered. Sister Maura Byron, who was then known as Sister Mary Paul, directed that musical with Barbara Clem helping her, one of our lay teachers. And she also engaged the services of a professional music conductor named Paul Solomonovich. So from my freshman year, from the very first months that I was in Louisville, I sang with Maura and with Mr. Solomonovich in choir and preparing for choir festivals and in all the productions we did during my 4 years here. Just an aside is that Paul Solomonovich figure in my life must have been meant to be in my life, because years later, when I went to college as a sister, he was the director of Mount St. Mary's Women's Group. And then when I graduated from college and went to teach at Cathedral Chapel, he was the musical director of St. Basil's Adult Church Choir 3 miles away. So to summarize it, I was singing with Paul Solomonovich almost all of the years from the time I was 14 until the time I was 60. And I don't know how that happened. It just must have been meant to be.
And you had opportunities, I think, to travel with that choir to different countries, didn't you, on some of the tours that you did?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We traveled a lot in the United States singing at American Choral Directors conferences. And then we traveled twice to Europe. One time we sang alone, just ourselves, for the Pope John Paul II. And then the second time we went, we sang at St. Peter's Square outside for about I forget what you call it, when the cardinals received their status or their...
The Red Hats?
Yeah, their red hats, probably. We sang with the Sistine Choir outside at St. Peter's in June 1988. So that was a real honor for us.
Those are really enriching experiences.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
lots of opportunities there. You also, I think, in your years at Louisville High School, were inspired and touched, I think, by the lives of many of the sisters there, because you entered the community directly after high school. Could you speak about how that vocation had a seed planted in you and how it grew, and here you are today? And we'll get to some of the places you've been since, too.
I think the seed of my religious vocation actually was planted in New York prior to my coming here. When I was in first grade, 4 of us were dressed up in the habits of the nuns that taught us at the time and went to a vocation fair. I took music lessons and piano lessons every Saturday in the convent for 4 years, so I got to know those sisters. Then we moved out here, and by the time I got to Our Lady of the Valley and the music and just the education that I received at Our Lady of the Valley, the vocation was tapped again. I remember Sister Catherine Marie, who was my 8th grade teacher, saying to me, "Donna, why aren't you applying to Alemany High School?" And I said, "Well, Louisville's closer." And she said, "I know, but I think someday you might enter the convent, and I'd like it to be with our group." And she was right. Years later, I did enter the St. Louis, and she was a superior in her convent at the time, and she helped me buy everything that I needed to join the Louis. She was supportive, even though she was disappointed that I didn't go into the Sisters of St. Joseph. At Louisville, over those 4 years of high school, Sister Maura Byron, as I mentioned, was very instrumental in my life with music. Sister Bernadette, who used to be known as Sister Otterin, she too, and Sister Trina McGinty often encouraged me to consider a vocation to the Sisters of St. Louis. And I went up and down during those years about whether I would join right after high school or not. And finally, it just felt as if it was in me, and I probably couldn't go on with my life without trying it. So I decided to enter right after high school and give it a year or two and see if it felt right, if I was happy, and if it seemed like what God wanted me to do. And here I am, almost 50 years later, so I guess it was.
Thank you, thank you. One of the themes that we really want to explore with you today is the history of music in the Sisters of St. Louis and the influence both that it's had on your life, and you really have spoken to that somewhat already, and with the Sisters of St. Louis. You've had the opportunity, as you've mentioned in your story thus far, to travel to different countries, but also in the leadership roles that you've held in the community have been an opportunity to travel throughout the Institute to the different countries that we're in. So with that very large question, could you speak to the ways in which music has been a theme in the Sisters of St. Louis, how it helps promote right relationships with God and one another? I know it's a very small question.
I suppose my first sense of music within St. Louis was here in high school. I was aware not just of our own musical productions, but I think we had some choral festivals for the elementary schools in which our sisters worked. And then I remember, even before I joined the order, I remember singing for vows down at St. Mel's one time. I think Sister Una Conley was conducting the sisters' choir. And then I remember singing, I've sung under Sister Maura Byron, Sister Una Conley, Sister Nuala Ryan, and then myself over the years leading the sisters in music for celebrations or funerals or retreats, prayer services. I did get to travel as a leader in California within the community. I got to attend many international meetings of our sisters. And so at those too, you would get a sense of how strong our music program was in Ireland and how it was passed on by our Irish missionaries to the sisters in Ghana and Nigeria originally. Not that those sisters didn't have their own innate sense of music. They love music, they love to sing, they love to dance, and they're very free in their celebration of music. But the Irish missionaries brought some of the Latin, some of the chant, some of the hymns that would unite us at an international meeting so we could all sing the same music. And we all had some of the same arrangements of Latin hymns that we had learned years ago. That in itself helps build unity. And music crosses cultural bounds. It speaks its own language, I think. And that's one way I would say it has added to our unity worldwide and given us some common ground.
Mm-hmm. In the opportunities that you've had to attend meetings throughout the Institute, in the times that you spent in the various countries, are there any services or vows or presentations you've been at where the music really, really touched you, or it was special in some way? I know from some of the observations I've had, it isn't just the music, it's the way it's embodied in the dancing and the movements too, especially our sisters in Africa.
I'm trying to think. I think the song Quid Retribuam has been used at vow ceremonies in numerous countries in which St. Louis resides. And I think the Go Ye Afar, which was the special song that sent missionaries on their way when they were leaving their homeland for the first time, I think that has significant meaning throughout the different regions and province of the Institute. But as you say, it's the in-between times at meetings or the evening relaxation periods where the everybody contributing their style of dance or their kind of song or their kind of humor would also build right relationships in a very human, down-to-earth way.
Donna, I'm trying, what is the translation for Quid Retribuam? I can't remember it.
I don't know it exactly. I think, what return shall I make to the Lord?
Okay.
I think.
Right.
For all the good that God has done for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking, what is the return? Okay, lovely.
I hope that's right.
If it's not, we'll hear about it, I'm
No,
sure.
you can edit it out.
Anyway, now in your role at the moment, you're working here in the high school, And could you speak just a little bit about how music influences the Louisville High School here in Woodland Hills currently, from what you've observed and been present for?
Well, we still have a beautiful choir in the high school, and we have a very strong dance and performing arts department. And then it's interesting, every day the daily announcements are introduced by some piece of music. It's usually a piece of rock and roll, a current song, but it could be something from 30 years ago. But that's how we begin all daily announcements. So it's just a fun way to include it. Other ways, I think I'll stop there. I don't know anything else off the top of my head about music.
Okay. Is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that you would really like to speak to in terms of music, in terms of charism, in terms of the, I think the wide lens that you would have on the Institute that you haven't spoken to because we haven't asked you?
Just when you mentioned the word charism, I'm just very conscious these days of how our charism to build unity among differences, or to bring people together, or to bridge differing opinions or perspectives. I'm just very conscious of how relevant that charism is today. So in school, teaching girls to respect one another, to respect where they're coming from, to respect the different life experience. In our society, to respect different cultures, to respect different countries, and not to think that we have the answers for all of that. I just think that that call to help people become one is more urgent than it ever was.
Yes, the directive or the call to heal, unify is really important today, especially throughout the world, especially here too, in our part of the world as well. So one last shot, anything else that I haven't asked you that you really want to share or would like to share or thought about sharing?
No, I'm grateful that we're trying to capture some of the stories, because with technology nowadays, with our publication of musings every month, we have a chance to get to know one another around the world, and capturing some of the history for our newer members that are joining even as we speak every year, to save some of the wisdom and richness that has been part of our legacy. I'm very happy that this is being taken care of in some small way.
Well, we're very happy that you are here with us today. We're very grateful for the wisdom and the insight and the sharings that you have enriched us with this day. And so with many, many thanks for taking the time to be here with us and for the lovely input and insights that you shared. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Donna.
You're welcome, Margaret. Thank you. Music supported my spirituality a long time. Today, while the blossoms still cling to the vine, I'll taste your strawberries, I'll drink your sweet wine. A million tomorrows will all pass away, ere I forget all the joy that is mine today.